Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same. And if you and I don't do this, then you and I may well spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it once was like in America when men were free.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode number 344 of Gun Freedom Radio, where we engage, we educate, and we inform. We are brought to you by azfirearmsauctions.com, where you set the price on guns, ammo, and accessories. I am one of your hosts, Cheryl Todd.
And I'm the other guy, Dan Todd. Our theme today is Protect Your Local Range. Our guest is Brian Hill. Brian is the owner and head instructor of the Complete Combatant in Dahlonega, Georgia. He is a Heckler Koch brand ambassador, a Rangemaster Certified Master Instructor, and a Certified Red Dot Instructor, and has endorsed an Endorsed Instructor with the Modern Samurai Project. Brian holds a Force Science Analyst Certification and is also certified by Massad Ayoob Group as a Deadly Force Instructor. Brian is a 4th degree black belt in Jiu Jitsu, has graduated from the Law of Self-Defense Instructor program, and is a form deputy with the Fulton County Sheriff's Department. And I really messed that up, Brian, but welcome to the show.
Hey, it's great to be here. That's a lot of things to say about one guy. So
I know, and Cheryl's going to have to clear this all up. She'll clean it all up.
I know, but it's because you are so accomplished.
Yes.
That's why there's so much to say. But it's so funny about the name of the city. Can you do it again?
Dahlonega.
Nice. See, that was good.
Yeah.
If I don't look at it, I can do it. That's the problem.
We even set it to music before we started. Well,
Dahlonega. Dahlonega.
Okay.
Right, no more fun.
Brian didn't come here to see a musical, I'm quite sure. All right, Brian, thank you so much for being here. And you and your amazing wife, Shelly, owners of the Complete Combatant, you guys do so much awesome work, and we appreciate you. And the shooting sports are an integral part of Americana, but unfortunately, many of our live fire ranges are under pressure to close. Like, why would people want us to not be practicing and be proficient with our firearms? Your small private outdoor range is nestled in a hill in the middle of 48 acres. Okay, I'm jealous. 48 acres. And it is even facing a similar crisis. What the heck is going on in Dahlonega, Georgia?
Well, as I've heard over and over again, we support the Second Amendment. We just don't want it in our backyard. And that's the big thing. The noise seems to bother people. And in the county that we're in is Lumpkin County. There is no noise ordinance. So there's no form of enforcement for noise. And this is an agricultural area, which means tractors, dump trucks, chainsaws, mowing equipment is constantly moving. It's a very loud area sometimes. And they've gotten kind of upset with us shooting. We've taken measurements at the street. We had nothing above 70 decibels at the street, which is lower than OSHA requires for hearing protection. But there's quite an advocacy going against us right now. And as we know, it's easier to be against something than it is to be for something. Claude Warner did a great research on it. There's only one open outdoor range per 1,000 shooters. And and that's what we're facing now, is that this is a disappearing thing because we're an agricultural preserve and people are, 10, 20 acres apart from each other, but it's still a problem. And it's something they don't want. So they came after us as a commercial business and an agricultural preserve instead of a noise ordinance. So we're having to deal with zoning and planning and try to work our way through meetings. And I have to say that there's been a lot of mismanagement of what the truth of really is going on up here, because we only run one shooting class a month on the weekend, and we do several private lessons. It's a private range where only if I'm here do we teach. Our Shelley's here, so it's not an open all-day event. So it's not the kind of noise that people expect to be generated. So,
wow, this is so. I would like to say that it's shocking, but it's starting to feel more typical. And so I think what I'm wondering is this a true, genuine, just that the residents are annoyed with a noise situation? Or do you think this is another one of those situations like the Second Amendment Foundation was just working on a case in Pennsylvania where they were trying to use zoning as a way to implement gun control? So do you feel like this is, just grassroots, or is there like an organized effort here?
There seems to be one neighbor that's particularly good at this. She was on the Board of Education, so she really created this situation. She also feigned friendship and took a class from us.
Oh,
so it's been kind of a malicious way to get into this, and they couldn't stop us because of noise. So they used zoning. And since it's agricultural and we're a commercial business, they came after us for that way. And there were some requirements that we have met so far. And I don't think there's a big effort as a Second Amendment thing, but several of the neighbors say they're pro Second Amendment, but they don't like noise. So it becomes a land use problem. How are you allowed to use your land? And that's the way it's been framed in Dahlonega, is how to use your land here. Are we free to use our land or not? Can we make noise or not? And I think the problem with this sort of group mentality or mob mentality is I don't think they realize that at any moment it could turn against them. It could be their kid's grand bike. It could be them playing musical instruments. It could be they have a, wood crafting shed that makes a lot of noise. It could be them very well next. And this is a dangerous slope, as we talk about in Second Amendment. It's a slippery slope. Once you start telling people what they can and can't do, we're moving away from what America truly is, I believe, in my heart. And I'm not a great political spokesperson. I'm a good coach, but sometimes politics seeks you out no matter what. So we are doing the best we can to frame this and to stay reasonable and prudent. What would they expect? So we've made a lot of concessions, and we've set up a lot of things to help regulate the noise in the future. And we're willing to dump quite a bit of money into our range to make it acceptable. But I don't know if compromise is among these people's goals.
Right. Brian, how long have you guys had the range there?
So we have been here, the range has been here for almost 8 years, but it hasn't been a commercial entity in itself. I'm a traveling instructor, so I was very rarely here. And then last year we had a mixed martial arts business, which I closed because of COVID. I caught COVID and almost killed me. And then, of course, my gym membership plummeted. So we made a rational decision with the business and closed it. So we became more of it. A lot of people have offered the Range Protection Act, for a functioning business, but what they're coming after us is whether we have a special land use agreement to function in this agricultural preserve. So the Range Protection Act doesn't cover us in this because they're coming after us as the commercial licensing part of it.
Yeah, looks to me like you need to offer corn growing while you shoot. Some little bit of have a little garden out there and say, farm and shoot.
Right? You could have, what do they call those little plots of land that, raised beds or something, right?
Well, this is a working cow farm. So we're in a valley that's surrounded by 100-foot hills all the way around, and it's a working cattle farm. So there's 150 acres of cattle farm around us. And then, of course, we're planting freedom seeds.
Exactly. Right.
So we are farmers.
I like it. That is fantastic. So one thing that is feeling familiar to us and has nothing that I can think of to do with people, getting pinchy lipped about the Second Amendment is out where we live here in Arizona. We're very near an Air Force base, Luke Air Force Base, which is like the training base for pilots. And it has been there forever. And so there was this push, not once, but several times, of people saying, they don't like living around that sound, right, of airplanes, of pilots being trained, the sound of freedom. Yeah. They don't like living around that. And it's a real head scratcher for us because the sound was there before your home was even, built, before that subdivision was even a thought in anybody's mind. And to think that they can move in, these, people can move in and then be upset about something that they should have done their research on is, it's frustrating. I think that has finally, gone away, and I don't.
Just for now. They keep coming back. That's the problem. You can get this resolved, and then some new board member comes in and they have a bone to pick with you. And that's the thing. It's just like in our neighborhood, we have one neighbor that's causing all kinds of hell. And that neighbor just moved in. It wasn't a neighbor that somebody's been there for 20 years. And they just make hell for everybody because they don't like something that they moved into when it was happening. So anyway, we'll pray for you on that. And you got to be persistent with it. And, there's got to be a way that you're going to be okay with this, but
for sure. So what does it boil down to, Brian? Is it at its core, is it a Second Amendment issue? Is it the special land usage zoning, or is it a noise ordinance issue? Like, what's the front you're fighting on?
We're really fighting the special land use agreement. And they have rolled the noise into that. So we have come up with a good plan to really bring the noise down. Noise is an interesting thing because it's magnitudes. 70 decibels, not considered a lot of noise, but we've contacted a company that's going to make barriers for us and help keep the noise in it. They're sound absorbing. We're also doing an absorbing program on our cover. And we're looking at dumping about $35,000 into the range, which for a very small business is a lot of money.
Yeah.
But I want to be a good neighbor too. I know a lot of people move from one place and bring their values to another place because they didn't like where they lived, but then they try to enforce the same thing. And that's kind of what this has turned into. They're just finding a way. They say they want to support it, but they don't want to have it around them. So we're going to do the best we can to really, have a sound abatement program, which doesn't make compromise happy on the other side of the road, I'm sure, but it will make a huge difference, and I think
that's the hard thing is, let's say you put this 35,000 in, let's say you do all these things, and the person or people that are behind this push, they're just going to find another thing and then another thing. Maybe at some point you're going to need arbitration if you can really get to the core of who it is. But that is the scary thing, I think, about any self-owned business, because you just don't really know if your investment is going to stick or not. But how are you feeling about that? Could the goalpost just keep moving?
It is a concern. I would say that the good news is if we get the special land use agreement and then we operate for a year, we will be protected by the Range Protection Act at that point. So I think they'd have a hard time. What they're going to have to change in Dahlonega is a noise ordinance. And they've been after it because we have wedding venues. This is one of the best places to get married in America. And they have outdoor wedding venues. We get married in barns in Georgia. So there's a lot of noise and they're up late. And, people have been trying to silence that. But I don't think politically anybody wants to start telling people what to do on their own land. And that's where we're really at. That's a very dangerous thing to start doing. And the commissioners or the board members know that they could lose their position pretty quickly because these 30 people are upset, but then you have a whole county of 20,000 people, which would be much more upset if you start telling them what they can and can't do. So I think maybe we can kind of buttress this and control it, but you never know. It may be a civil action next. There could be multiple fronts on this. So we've prepared as best we can on every front and tried to anticipate every possible way they might come after us.
Boy, absolutely. And, that's the thing is, don't people move out to the country and get multiple acres for the very purpose of being left alone? Right? And so if you're out there trying to be left alone, but you're too busy looking over the hedge, 48 acres away at the neighbor, and trying to poke your nose into their business, it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But, a few years ago, not even that long ago, there was the Hearing Protection Act. And maybe somebody's re-upped it. I'm hoping so. And the Hearing Protection Act is basically, it's a bill that removes silencers from the NFA, the National Firearms Act. So you wouldn't have to pay the the huge tax in order to be considered an okay individual to have a muffler for your firearm, right? We have to pass a law so you can put a muffler on your firearm. We say that about cars, people would laugh their heads off, but with a firearm, somehow it's, like earth shattering. How important would this be, not only to your range, but to however many hundreds, maybe thousands of outdoor ranges on people's private property? How important would that be?
It would make a world of difference. It's one of those nonsensical things that the suppressor was included in that. And if we could suppress our weapons, it's not like the movies. They're not quiet.
Right.
Because if we're shooting fast enough ammo, it's breaking the transonic barrier. And there's still the noise of the bolt running back and forth. So there's still noise. It's not completely quiet, but it mitigates it. And it's hard for the direction to be sourced. And it would make everybody much happier in the long run. And I think if we made that available, then the market would respond by making better and better suppressive equipment that maybe we could fit on pistols, not just rifles. And I think it would make a lot of sense. And I know in Europe, some places you're required to have a suppressor to shoot a rifle. It's a requirement. So
you can buy a suppressor over the counter in Europe.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and a lot of people don't realize, they think that they watch these movies, and just like everything else, they dramatize the movies. They make things that are real unreal, and they make noise. You're right. They do make noise, and you can tell it was a gun that was fired. So if the people that made the laws realize this, maybe take them all out shooting and show them that it doesn't really change the aspect of the sound. It just quietens it so it's safer to shoot. Then maybe they'd get that passed, because it's silly. They have really strict gun laws in Europe, really strict,
right?
But you can have a suppressor.
Yeah, it's a muffler.
Right. So, and people go hunting. You can't wear earplugs while you're hunting, because you need to listen for animals, and the animals don't like to wait for you to put your earplugs on before you shoot. And how safe it is that you can hear other people out in the forest or wherever you're hunting, right? If you have earplugs on, you may not be able to hear them. So there's a lot of reasons why suppressors should be legal.
Absolutely. And easier.
I hear 1 million shots a year on the range, because I'm teaching everywhere I go. 1,000 rounds per 20 people. It's 20,000 rounds a weekend. How many people in our industry have hearing damage?
Yes.
Too
many.
What'd you say?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's not good for you,
Right. So. And the other thing too about suppressors, that, it's a $200 tax, which I don't like, but it's a $200 tax. It's been that way since 1934. The problem is it takes 9 to 12 months to get it.
Yeah.
That's the problem. What you do today and 9 months from now can be completely different. You could have moved 3 times.
Right.
There's a lot of issues that happen when and there's no quicker way to do it.
Absolutely.
So.
Well, and it's just one of those things where people say they want a problem fixed. And so you say, okay, here's a solution. Well, not that way. That's not the way that's going to suit me, So that goal.
One other thing too, in the movies, they show these suppressors that are, a suppressor is long. It's almost as long as the firearm that you're shooting it from in a handgun. So it's not easily concealed. It's not easily holstered with a suppressor. They need to re-examine what a suppressor is and what kind of effects it has.
Absolutely. Well, were you going to say something, Brian?
Nope, that's good. I think we've covered it.
Yeah. So with all of these things that we've talked about, if you could tell the neighbors one thing that you think might change their mind, other than we'll move, right? or
they'll move.
We'll stop, ever discharging firearms on our land. What do you think could possibly be the thing that would move the needle for them?
Well, we've tried all the compromise and concessions. So I'm going to say something very directly to the neighbors. Even if we stop as a commercial business, this is still a shooting range. I am a professional instructor. My wife is a professional instructor. My friends are professional instructors. If we're not receiving money for this, we can still shoot. There's nothing to stop us. So if you allow us to invest in the neighborhood and make this quieter, you're going to be happier in the long run. than if you don't do this, because there's still going to be shooting. You're just going to make sure that we can't do it on a commercial basis. But I shoot a lot. You know, I'm a sponsored shooter, so there's a lot of rounds going over here. And I have actually stopped shooting personally for the last month or so to be more considerate. But the harassment that we faced, my consideration is dwindling. So I think it's important that they know that there's going to be shooting, because they have shooters that we live right down the street. We're building a house. We have our own private property. We have this area. We're still going to be shooting. So let's come to some sort of accord that makes the best sense for all of us and minimizes the noise you're going to hear, because it's simply not going to go away.
I love that. And that's so reasonable. It's so logical. And have you been the only ones making any concessions, or have the neighbors that are upset, have they made any concessions so far?
You know, it's been a little horrifying to me. I understand people pretty well, but the way they handled this is several of them have taken class from us and know us. Not one of them spoke to us in advance. And we were hosting Tom Givens. So they waited until it was a month before Tom Givens was coming in. And then they filed this with the zoning board so that they would make sure his class got canceled. The things that they've said and done have been horrendous. There's been no communication. We've reached out several times. I tried to make meetings with one of the immediate neighbors. We reached out to another one and offered to sit down and talk to them. They want the government to tell them what to do, but they don't want the government to take away what they want to do. They want to tell us what to do. So it's a very difficult situation. As an adult, I'm shocked that there wasn't some previous path besides just going and telling the zoning board. We could have really worked this out. And, you know, now it's gotten heated and they're mad. And I think the only thing that'll make them happy is if we go away. And, you know, we live here now. This is our retirement home. We're part of this community. And if you've met my wife, you don't want her organizing something against you. She's the best organizer I know.
It's the truth. I mean, so, and with a smile and, you know, she won't chip a nail doing it. But I'm telling you, she will. She is amazing. And I agree with you.
So you've actually been told to shut down some of your classes or presentations?
Yeah, the zoning board asked us to do that. We've been shut down for about 6 weeks now. So we're losing money as we sit here. So it's been a big hit, you know, and then we raised money to improve the range, and we just have to wait for them to decide. Unfortunately, the board is usually 5 members. One gentleman passed away, so they're at 4 members. So this could end up in a deadlock, and we might have to go to appeal.
Or maybe you're going to have to get on the board.
Yeah. Well, that's what we keep hearing. I really don't want to be a politician. I'm a really good coach. But, you know, we're being drawn into this, and we're going to bring all our resources to bear. And we're both very bright, energetic people that love America. And we simply will not be cowed by hate around us. We'll find a way to work through this. So
they can't stop you from shooting there. They just can stop you from commercial, right?
That's it.
Okay. So get a bunch of, if, you can get some short barrel AR-15s. They're kind of loud when you, when you shoot them, and, and have a shoot every 15 minutes, right? Just every 15 minutes.
You need a lot of personal practice on your personal land.
I love it. I'm so sorry you have to go through that, because, when you own something and it's yours and it's 48 acres, you kind of think, okay, I'm unlimited what I can do here. As long as it's legal trade, you can, and you feel violated when people start telling you what you can't do with your property. And I really feel bad for you for that. So we'll be praying that you get this resolved.
You guys are the right ones for a battle like this, I think, because you're both calm, you're both logical, you're both goal oriented. And the other side, I almost feel like they're just waiting for you to get your back up, right? They're just waiting for you to get angry. And
little Chihuahua dogs.
They're the Chihuahua dog. Yeah. But how can we kind of spread out the work and make this a lighter load? Because you're not the only outdoor range that is experiencing this, I guarantee you. What is your greatest need right now that we and all of our listeners all across the nation, is there something we can do to help specifically the situation you're dealing with, And then maybe the larger thing with maybe getting involved in getting the Hearing Protection Act passed, or what can we do, Brian?
So, you know, it's interesting. We talked about the bad 10% across the street. Now let's talk about the wonderful 10%, which is the shooters. We have run a GoFundMe account to raise money for the range. It has already reached its goal, which was originally $25,000, which may be short. We won't know until after the hearing. We're not going to raise any more money until we know after the hearing that they give us the go ahead. If it doesn't go through, then of course the money would be returned. We started a petition, which is something everybody could sign. It is on our Complete Combatant page. It's the first thing that comes up. The more voices heard, the better the political pressure. Now, if you live in Lumpkin County, you count even more. If you could sign the petition and show up to the hearing, it makes a tremendous difference, because that's our political process in action. Since we're a constitutional republic, the mob can't overrule everybody. And if you show up and make your voice heard, it makes a big difference. For all the other ranges out there, you need to support them. You need to show up and go shooting, because it's good for you and you'll get better at shooting. You need to pay attention to the issues that are going on in your county, because we're dying by the death of 1,000 cuts right now. You know, PayPal closes the instructor's account, then the county comes after them. Then it just becomes unviable as a business. And then eventually your children don't have a place to go shoot. And what a part of loss of the American way of life that you don't get to. You know, I took my grandsons out here and I kind of get choked up thinking about this, and taught them to shoot on a 22. You know, what a great moment that was for me. I teach all the time, but taking my grandkids, teaching them gun safety, teaching them to be responsible and how to handle something deadly, to make good decisions. This is a part of who we are as Americans. And I think we need to support and be vocal. Sometimes I haven't done a great job in the past, but I feel more of the calling now to do that and to help as much as I can. You know, I see about 1,000 people a year coaching, which makes a big difference in the shooting sports. But I think this is something we all need to get involved with. And I greatly honor all of you that have done the media side and the politics. You know, the politics side is so hard, but it's such important work, and we need to be heard. And if you can throw $10 at the GoFundMe for your range and they have something going, help them out, because it was amazing. We raised $25,000 in, I don't know, 2 weeks to save the range. And that's just something we didn't have to pour into it. So it's a wonderful thing. Awesome. Yep. So it's on our page, thecompletecombatant.com. You can find it all right there. The petition's there, and, you know, send an email to the commissioners. It's just good to hear your voice.
The anti-gun people don't realize that teaching kids how to fire a firearm, the gun safety, all this thing it's accountability for them. It's responsibility. It has nothing. It's everything.
Right. We focus.
You're right, and we don't do that anymore. We throw them a remote control and let them go. There's no guidance. There's no morality. You know, we don't teach kids anything, and so I don't know. I think if we lost the ranges and we lost what you're doing, this world would be in sad shape. So thank you for what you're doing.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And we've got 2 grandkids, both girls. One just turned 7 and one just turned 2. And we still haven't even had a chance to get the 7-year-old out on the range yet. Some of that was all the COVID craziness that interrupted an entire year. But it is a special moment that we are really looking forward to. And it's a legacy thing.
I bought her a gun already.
Of course you did. Of course you did. But just like our Constitution and our Bill of Rights are part of our legacy, you know, we are passing that. We are a bridge, right? Our generation is a bridge to the next. And it is the things that our founding fathers fought, bled, starved, and died to even have the opportunity to write down, put quill to parchment, to write down. But it's also the skills and the responsibilities that we're passing forward. And the Second Amendment and the shooting sports and training with firearms, it encompasses all those things. And I think that it just cheapens it so much when people take the stance that unfortunately your neighbors have and that you're dealing with. But is there anything else that's important that we should talk about before we start wrapping up? Or do you feel like we've pretty much talked about the issue and empowered people of how they can help.
The only thing I would add is to be the reasonable, prudent person, which is a part of our law. The more that we put our information out there, we have been accused of having armed zealots that are backing us up here. That was one of the letters that we received, and it's simply not true.
Wow.
We are very, reasonable people. And that's what we expect. And that's what I require of my clients. And that's what I think this fight requires, is people to be constantly reasonable and constantly prudent in what their assessment of it is. And, as I tell my class, if you haven't changed your mind in 3 weeks, you're wrong. Something's going to happen. You're a very stubborn person. So, we keep changing and we keep trying to adjust, and we're going to find a way through this.
Absolutely.
We will find a way through this, and all the amendments are important. The Second Amendment just gives us some way to express ourselves, but I don't want any of them to go away. And I see all of them under attack right now. Right. So
absolutely. Boy, I have to say that you and your wife, Shelley, I hate that you're going through this, but you are such the right people to be fighting this kind of a battle. And there are people on the other side that they want to parse our words and try to make them something that they're not, just like, so does that make me a zealot? That, maybe, I'm a little bit zealous for the Constitution. I'm a little bit zealous about my freedoms and my liberties. So when we use words like fight and battle, we are, in a battle of ideas and values and words. And that is those are the tools that you're using to move through this time. And you and Shelley are just the right people for this. And I hope that our listeners will take that opportunity. Sign on to the CompleteCombatant.com, sign a petition. It doesn't get much easier than that. Now you're an advocate. Congratulations. High five to you, right?
Yep.
Not just an advocate, but you took action. So now you're an activist for, the things you believe in. So again, high five for you, everybody out there listening. So just as we start wrapping up, thank you again for what you guys are doing, for all the lives you are helping to improve through training, through offering, people a way to safely and intelligently interact with their surroundings and the tools that we use for self-protection. But tell folks how they can continue to follow the work you're doing, take a class from you, whether it's on your place or one of these classes you travel for. And again, if there is money that can help, how do we help out in that way?
So I made a joke once upon a time that my wife was the indispensable organizational wizard, and now that's her title. It's not a real title, but it's a cool one nonetheless.
It fits.
And she's really good at putting everything together. So if you go to the CompleteCombatant.com, you're going to find all our social media. We have YouTube, we have Twitter, we have Instagram. We're on all of those. It is well organized. It's easy to follow the website. You'll find everything you need there to follow along with our fight. Pay attention. Next week is the 21st when we have our next hearing. So we'll know whether it's a go or not, or if we need to do something more. If it is something, if they give us the go ahead and we find out we need more money, we'll open a GoFundMe account again, sign the petition on the front page. And I'd like to thank you two for what you do. You're incredibly organized with what you do. You're incredibly engaging with what you do, which is not always the case. It's hard. We get dry, we get logical, and to have us on and the support that you show, we really appreciate it. We appreciate what you do very much.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Brian. Love to you and Miss Shelley both. Can't wait until we get a chance to see each other in person again.
I'm sure our paths will cross soon.
I hope so. All right.
Yep.
Thank you again so much. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
We'll see you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Brian.
Bye.
Man, it just really bothers me that, this man owns 48 acres and he's not doing anything illegal. It's a violation. It's kind of like, I don't know, it just invades in my privacy kind of thing. It's like, this is my property. As long as I'm not doing anything, we don't have the range directed at somebody's house. We're just shooting in our neighborhood. We're not shooting at midnight.
Right. which it's interesting because he mentioned like the wedding venues.
Yeah.
Those will go till midnight, right? And so,
and we hear noise in our neighborhood of power saws or chainsaws or people with the blowers and the yard work. And I look at that and I go, I don't even think about it, that why is that a problem?
Right.
So it's time to get up anyway.
Right. So if somebody was standing on the street in front of our house, remember, what was that movie? John Cusack, and he had his boombox up on his shoulder and he's blaring the music. So let's say somebody did that and they're intentionally targeting us with like noise.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a different thing.
Right.
That's an invasion now of us. But when we do hear the Luke Air Force Base airplanes
or the kid next door that has batting practice, that practices it till 9 o'clock at night, and you hear an aluminum bat striking against a ball. Yeah. To me, that's okay. It's
purposeful is where I was heading. It serves a purpose.
Right.
And, somebody blowing leaves, they're cleaning. They're trying to keep their home, which is part of our neighborhood, clean. The kid next door with the dink with his bat.
I like that noise.
He's engaging. I do too, but he's engaging in growing skills and being focused and responsible with his practice, being diligent,
and not going out causing trouble somewhere.
Right. I mean, so if you can understand maybe that there's a purpose behind the noise, then I think it might take the noise out of that place where it's just driving me crazy.
Right. And we live in a resort area, and on Friday nights until about midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, there's a band over there playing, and it's loud, but it's never like.
It's kind of cool, actually.
Yeah, it just what to me, it's like people are having a good time. They're having a good time. Yes. Whereas other people say, oh, why aren't they home in bed? Or like I said, we have one neighbor that. Yeah.
We don't want to go there. We'll talk about that another time.
We definitely don't want to go there.
But anyway, for the most part, we live in an amazing place. And I think that, if you can just orient yourself with freedom and liberty, and you say, well, I'm free to keep my place clean by using a leaf blower. So why wouldn't I want my neighbor to keep their place free or clean? And if I'm trying to put myself in the mental position of somebody that they don't value firearms or the Second Amendment. I don't know how they can wrap their brain around the value that the Second Amendment and firearms training brings, but it actually does keep your home safer, your neighborhood safer, your city safer, your state safer, and your nation safer when people are diligently and continuously practicing with their firearms. So if you really want safety and security and a better place to live, then, enjoy the sounds around you, And if you do need your neighbor, you have special needs where your neighbor is really, really loud, well, then, come to the neighbor. You don't have to immediately run off to, the authorities.
Right. We lived in our neighborhood for 20 years, and I have a trailer. It's a 20-foot trailer that I use once in a while. And sometimes I come in late, so I park it on the street, and the next morning it's gone. And lately, with this new neighbor that we have coming in, they call the police.
Right.
Right.
Actual
I get
police.
a call at.
So you did go there.
They knock at my door at 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
The police are called instead of the neighbor coming in and saying, your trailer's parked here, where I could say, hey, you know what? I just got in. I'm going to take care of it in the morning. Right. It's not like it's unhooked. Right. It's parked there for the night. And it's like, what could that possibly mean? Any other thing than just wanting to control, wanting control.
It is a poor way to communicate your displeasure, because you could leave a note in the mailbox.
But
they have my cell number. They could call me or text me.
10 o'clock at night.
They could write a letter to the city, right?
Yeah.
Because we don't have an HOA, which is the only reason that, not the only reason we live there, but we won't live in an HOA because we've had past issues with this sort of thing. But there's so many different ways that this particular neighbor could have handled it, but they call the actual police and use their man hours, taxpayer money for something so silly.
That causes no harm. It's not even during the day.
No harm. So anyway, they feel harmed apparently. I don't know, but I just want to go back and thank Brian Hill and Shelley Lederhill for who they are, what they do, the way that they engage things like this, because, they could meet emotion with emotion, right? Because their neighbors are, I would say very emotional in their way of approaching this, that it escalated so quickly. But they don't. They stay true to themselves. They stay, I love what he wrote, what he said, reasonable and prudent. They are reasonable and prudent people. And I would say that the vast majority of those of us who are responsibly armed citizens, that's, an exact descriptor for who we are. It's just part of our DNA. It's just part of who we are. And
but a lot of the other side doesn't think that with us. They think that
they
we're
don't, and they're like constantly trying to provoke. They're like, I know there's a trigger. I know there's an emotional trigger in there somewhere, and we're just going to keep trying to pick at it and pick at it. And that's where we have to be the adults.
And they get madder because it doesn't. They just get madder.
They get madder, right? Yeah. Exactly. It's like when our young ones, our grandchildren, like when they're trying to, maybe they're it's not just on an everyday basis, but they're already in a little bit of a tiz, and then they're just trying to pick and see if they can get a rise out of us. And we have to be the adults in that room and in every room. And sometimes the room is the entire nation. And so,
oh my gosh, it's a mess.
Oh my gosh, we don't have time for that. We got to wrap.
Let's pray for our nation.
I love
do all that.
Why
stuff.
don't we do that?
Well, we'll just pray for our nation. Pray for our representatives.
Mm-hmm. What about the ones you don't like, Dan?
Yeah.
Them too?
Okay. Okay.
Maybe especially them. Give them an extra. He winks. He's winking at the camera right now.
No, we need to pray for everybody, because we need to pray to give them wisdom.
Yes, absolutely. Right? So and discernment and understanding, and for God to be the great interpreter that He is.
Because they may not know what freedom really is.
Right.
They just may not know, because
they might think freedom is getting their way. Right.
Right.
And that's the end of it. I got my way, so therefore freedom is still intact.
Right. If somebody's
that's not the case.
If somebody's taught from the minute they're put in school that a certain way, even if it's not the truth way, they're going to think that later in life, right? So we do need to pray that they get the knowledge.
Well, we were taught growing up, keep your nose to yourself, keep your hands to yourself, live and let live. That is what we were taught. And there's actually one of our friends, Mark J. Victor, Attorneys for Freedom. He is, starting a whole program, a whole platform that he wants people to, run for office on this platform. And it's not even the freedom platform. It's the live and let live, because that spells it out. And I think more people need to think in terms of that. But what we didn't say yet, Dan, is that when you want to watch this video again, or any of our videos, please go to YouTube, to Gun Streamer, or to the smartphone app called Ops Lens. And you can find us there. If you like to listen to the audio only version, because maybe you're out for a drive or for a run or something like that, you can go to our website, GunFreedomRadio.com, click the On Demand tab, and binge listen to your heart's content while Danny mocks me. And if you want to see photos and bios of all of our guests, you can go to our guest tab. It's a great resource, and we do not hate it when you spend time there. All right. Well, I think that just about does it for this week. And
see you real soon.
See you real soon. So until next time, please be good to each other. Have a great week. God bless.
Bye-bye.